Hey, I'm Ammar.
And I'm Matthew.
And this is Our Side of the Coin. Hey, welcome to another episode on Our Side of the Coin. Today we're going to be talking about video game genres and how we rank them from our experience. So we got a list up on the screen, as you could probably see. We got Matt, we're ranking 1 through 10, and Matt's side and my side. So Matt's going to start talking about platformers, and we're going to compare, and hopefully the list may or may not change throughout the whole video. So stay tuned. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, hopefully it changes, or else this is going to be either really short or really boring episode. And also, as always, disclaimer. So me and Ammar, we are video game players, as in we play them occasionally. When we spent some time making this list, and realization we came to is we don't play like as much video games as we would have thought. So just like take that in mind when you listen to this. Like, we're not video game experts, or like we're not gamers necessarily. That's what we're saying.
We're just casual gamers who are stuck into the college rut.
Yeah. So this is a casual gamer's perspective, ranking genres. Number 1 I have ranked as platformers. Number 2 FPS. 3 racing games and simulator games. Roguelikes, RPGs, strategy games, battle royales, puzzle games, adventure games, and sports games.
Yep, and on my side of the list, you can see I have FPS, adventure, strategy, sports, racing games / simulations, puzzle, platformers, battle royales, RPGs, and roguelikes. So we're going to start talking about platformers on Matt's side.
I put platformers as number 1. Honestly, it's really close between platformers and FPS, but I put platformers at number 1 because I like them because they're really simple, and I like what you can do with platformers with difficulty. I think that like there's some platformers out there that just hit like a really good sweet spot with difficulty, where like the game is pretty easy to understand. It's just you've got, as long as you have good movement, and then you just know you just move around and you jump, but then you can do so much with that with the level design. And if a game does it well, then you just have hours of just like the progression comes from being better at the game as opposed to sinking time. So I just think platformers are really like, when platformers are done right, I think they're my favorite gaming experience.
Okay, so as you can see, platformers aren't very high on my list. And I think the reason for that, so Matt has very good points with, definitely there's a lot of potential with platformers to be done very well. And if, you spend the time to play them, and you will literally have to like amass the skill to play them well. That's also where my critique comes in, right? The problem for me as like a full-time student, a pretty busy student, I would say most of the day. I only get really time to play games occasionally on the weekends, depending on how the week went, right? So the problem with platformers for me, and I think one of the big ones that stands out to me is one of the classic games with Cave Story, right? That classic platformer from a couple of decades ago, is you do have to amass that skill, but the amount of time it takes to amass that skill, especially if you're just somebody who wants to come in and play on the weekends, right? Between weeks, the platformers are a lot of muscle memory. I think you can agree with me there, yeah. Right, Matt? And basically, because there's so much muscle memory, what happens if you like don't have the time to commit to that kind of muscle memory, right? It's almost like playing an instrument at that point, if you want to think about it, because there is a level of skill, and I agree, if you have the time, they're a great asset. But even then, let's say hypothetically you have like all the time in the world and all you do is play platformers, right? I think there is a sort of skill cap at a point. I mean, you could keep amassing the difficulty, but once you get just really good at platformers, you just get, really good at platformers. And I don't know how well that translates over to other genres, if that makes sense.
I would agree with your point about the time thing, because there are lots of platformers that are like spend a considerable amount of time doing this one specific thing until you get it right. But I would say there's lots of platformers out there that aren't on the harder side of things. And like poster child for that, and the poster child for the genre, the Super Mario games. Like the first one is pretty difficult, but like as they go on, they get pretty easy. And like the Odyssey is different, but the Wii ones were like pretty easy. And then so for those, you don't have to sink in the time you have to do with the other ones. But I still think that there's lots of satisfaction to be gained from a good movement system, which I think those games had.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, so totally, I agree with that. I grew up playing Super Mario as well a lot, but it was on the Wii, so I can't really speak for difficulty as much in terms of platformers. I mean, I don't know, platformers are a great category, don't get me wrong, but they do require a little more time than your casual gamer would like to put in with it. And this is going to be my argument for a couple of the other categories that you'll see at the bottom of my list that might be higher on your list. So let's talk about FPS now real fast. So FPS, obviously, it's really high on both of our lists. Both of us like to play together games like Left 4 Dead, games like Payday 2. And I just think FPS, it's one of those nice, casual, you could set in, pick up a quick game, even if you're a little busy, and I think the main part for that, for me, and this might be just a personality thing, but I do like the ability to like socialize over something such as FPS. And FPS is definitely such a common platform from series, including COD. And it's just so versatile and so well spread. I just enjoy the gameplay is really fun too. Like when you're in it, you get a lot of adrenaline rushes. You're going out, you're running. Even if you die, you come right back and you're boom, 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 boom. And then you also got the social aspect of it. If you're playing with friends, you guys all obviously will probably have a good time considering you're doing something fun together, even if you're not in person, which has been really helpful in this quarantine especially.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I like FPS for most of those reasons. The FPS genre I think is like the most ubiquitous, especially with like COD is just known for like it's a pretty popular game series. So like everyone knows the concept of FPS. So you just get like when you have a group of friends and you're trying to do something online, which 99% of our interactions nowadays are. It's like, oh, we'll just load up Left 4 Dead or we'll load up COD, or I've been playing a lot of Titanfall 2. And you just load up those and you do a couple matches and it's just time.
Yeah, and it's easy, even if you're not great at it, right? You have teammates usually that'll help you out with it, right? Yeah. Exactly. I'm not a great gamer myself. Usually, when I'm playing with you guys make it more fun for me. That otherwise I would be extremely frustrated half the time. All right, so we talked about FPS. Let's quickly, and I know we're going through these kind of quickly, but we got a lot of categories to hit, guys. So adventure, and so this is where I see a big discrepancy, because this is like your second least favorite, and this is my second most favorite category. So let me talk about adventure real fast. Or would you like to open with critiques?
Nah, you go.
All right. So my deal with adventure is, even from a young age, I just like storytelling in general, right? Reading books, and then as I grew up, more story games. Grew up playing Zelda, and once I got to PC games, there's amazing story games that I've played. Detroit Become Human is a recent one that comes to mind. And the element that I really like about these story games is a lot of them, you don't have to spend arguably that much time to pick up the skill necessary. And this is one of the drawbacks, and this is why it's probably not my number one. The skill cap isn't very high for adventure games. Once you get decent at like the basic maneuvers, you're usually okay for most of the game, unlike FPS where there's a really high skill cap. But the reason I like adventure so much, and especially in the modern age, is kind of combining that element of, when you watch a TV show or a movie, and I don't like to watch TV as much as I like to game, right? When you watch a TV show or movie, part of the reason that a lot of TV shows, or even watching a sports game, for example, it infuriates a lot of people, is because they have no control over the outcome, even though they want to feel like they do, right? And I feel like adventure games, and story-based games especially, but other games too, other adventure games like Zelda and stuff, which might be more RPG leaning, but they just have that, capacity for you to, make the choices that you want to make and know that whatever happens in the game is a direct consequence of your action. Usually, not always. Some story games are very concretely set, but for a lot of them, you get that choice where you impact the ending, and I think that's really cool to me.
I think the reasons that you like it are the reasons that I don't like it, and we've entered into the world of opinions and preferences. Wow, people can like different things, but yeah, for games, there's a bunch of criteria for what you would like about a game, right? And for me, story is pretty low on there. I do not really have that much interest in the story of a game, and I don't know, call it low attention span or whatever. I just don't really I don't really have an interest. And so lots of the platformers sometimes have a story, but most of the time it's not the main focus. FPS sometimes have a story, like COD, there's a single player campaigns and stuff. There's a good amount of story driven FPS, but when the point of your game is the story, which I think is the point of adventure, I believe, I just don't have that much interest in it. And for me, they're pretty similar to watching a movie, because I still don't really feel like I have that much control necessarily.
Right, and I think that's where the element of where it breaks down to what kind of game it was. So the reason I Detroit Become Human is just something I really played recently. I liked it, so it's coming to mind. I played a lot of adventure games. It's probably obviously as you can see here, it's my second favorite category. But so Detroit Become Human, and I'll compare it to a game like Life is Strange, for example, which is more of a graphic visualization. The reason I like that idea. I didn't like Life is Strange as much. It was good at the time, but that's because I hadn't had much experience with like these sort of adventure games, right? I don't want to be playing a game where I'm going through the motions for the characters, right? I want to be interacting, and I want my actions to matter. And I know this just becomes a fundamental disagreement that you just don't like the actual idea of storytelling. You like the mechanics of it, right? I find the storytelling just really intriguing.
It's not that I don't like it. I'm just not interested as much as opposed to the game mechanic.
And I guess that's where we enter like a fundamental disagreement, right? It was where, you know, you may, I don't know how much interest you have in reading like novels and stuff like that, or watching TV shows. Like I don't mind a good TV show once in a while. I don't like actively watch like, you know, series all the time, but I do. I just finished
watching Seinfeld, and I think that's a pretty good indicator to how much I care about story in media.
Yeah, okay. So that's just a fundamental disagreement. I don't think either of our top two are changing. Let's move on to racing games.
Yeah, so racing games / Sims. My ranking here makes more sense if you consider it as Sims / racing games. Because I have a passing interest in racing games. I've played Dirt. I liked it a lot. I'm only kind of good at it. I'm not really good at it. But I put this here mainly for Sims because I love flight sims. My most played game ever is War Thunder. I love that game. And I just got IL-2, and I just like planes, and I like flight games a lot. And then also, I really like American Truck Simulator, and that's a sim game too. I like sim games because vehicles are cool, like planes are awesome, and I'm never going to fly a plane. But in the games I get to, and I think that these games can be really relaxing most of the time. That's why I play American Truck Simulator. If I just want to unwind and just like zone out and chill for an hour, then just like drive across California and not really think about anything. And then on the other hand, you've got your like military sims where you get the same thing and get out of FPS, where there's like that, you feel like intense combat and stuff. So
see, my idea of relaxing is logging into GTA and robbing a couple of banks. So I mean, okay, so here's where I stand on this. I also, as you can see, like it's in the mid tier for me. It's a little higher up for you, but I pretty much agree with you with what you said with racing games. I like playing flight games, dogfight games, especially more when I was younger. Mario Kart was definitely a huge part of my upbringing. Played it for so many years, got really good at it for a while. Probably not so great now because it's definitely been a hot minute since I touched a Wii controller. But yeah, so I mean, I do like The Sims, and I love the point that you're making that they're really relaxing, which is why I like playing games like War Thunder. The thing is, I mean, maybe this is more of a War Thunder thing specifically. Sometimes they just like, you know, when you're flying the plane and your hands off keyboard, right, for like 2-3 minutes maybe at a time, depending on how you're playing, or even when you're driving the truck, right, and you're just holding W down for a while. I mean, I like to like do something, you know what I mean?
I got you. I actually think that's a really good point, and I don't think it's a War Thunder specific point, because the thing about simulators is that the goal of them is to make it as close to real life as possible, and there's lots of downtime in a lot of these things. Like, I mean, the whole idea of truck driving is basically downtime, and flying, there's lots of downtime, and so yeah, I think that point is fair. I just think that there's still I like the enjoyment of that, like, too, because you're still flying a plane, even if the plane is not necessarily doing anything.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with you. Like I said, I stand with you on most points. It's just that I just don't like when my hands are like off the keyboard, right? So to speak. I like to be interacting with the game as much as possible, which is funny considering I like adventure games so much. But we'll move on. So strategy games is what's up next. And so when I think strategy, I'm thinking games more like RimWorld, not like chess, right? The games where you're like developing some sort of like I like those like Civilization style games almost in a way. That's probably the only reason strategy ranks so high on my list. I don't really like games like, I don't know if you count chess as a video game, but chess like games, so to speak, just because they're not,
or turn-based games. I think
turn-based games, yeah, exactly. I don't like those as much, just because the amount of waiting you're doing while your opponent is like taking their turn, especially for online video gaming, but B, it's just, you know, a lot of those games feel pretty grindy, and as somebody who just likes to play casually, it's just not usually worth the time to get good at like those kinds of games. Like if you like chess and you're willing to put the time into it, or similar turn-based games, great. I'm glad for you, right? But it's just not my cup of tea at that point. But as you can see, strategy is still really high on my list, and that's just literally because games like RimWorld, games where I'm controlling the entire outlay, right? Those sorts of strategy games are fun for me. I don't know if I can elaborate much more on that. I'll let you talk on that and see if something hits me in the head.
Okay. So when I put strategy games, I put it here. I'm looking at it now. I'm actually going to make a change.
Oh.
I'm gonna put it here. But yeah. So when the strategy games, I was thinking of the turn-based things, and I'll be upfront. I haven't played that many of these, but I like the idea of them.
I think that's also my thing, right? I haven't played that many of them, but the idea, of implementing and planning in a game, I think seems pretty cool to me.
Yeah, because like one of my games that has been on my to play for a long time is XCOM, and I like the aesthetic of that a lot.
I guess the nice part about strategy game, I just like the planning aspect of it, the control that you have over the outcomes of whatever happens. Whereas like more, these games rank higher on my list, like FPS and stuff. FPS is like instinctive reactions. You don't really, you have to slowly train that over time. Strategy, if you use your brain, you can learn from your mistakes, sort of deal. You know what I mean? I just like the aspect of, having to think in a game sometimes. Roguelikes. This we have a big discrepancy on. You go ahead and start.
I really like roguelikes. Because, lots of the roguelikes I like are also platformers. But I like roguelikes for the same reason I like platformers, which is the difficulty thing. I think roguelikes are a really good way to have a game, have progression through you getting better. Because you're doing the same thing every time. It's just that every time you die, you restart, and you're doing the same thing, but you've done it once before. So you can, make up from past mistakes, develop, muscle memory and skill and stuff. But at the same time, you still have that. Most good roguelikes also have progression that goes between runs. And so lots of the games that I've played, so Spelunky, I played a lot of, which is a really good platformer and a really good roguelike. I played a lot of, I like Risk of Rain 2 a lot because of, I don't know, that one has some shooter elements with it, but that one is all about having items and making builds, which is also a big part of roguelikes. Because at that point you're not learning necessarily movement patterns, but you're learning what builds work. And then also a game that I played a lot of recently, Slay the Spire, I've liked a lot, which is one of the only, I think maybe the only card game I've ever played. And then lastly, Enter the Gungeon, which is I guess bullet hell, 2D shooter. But yeah, right. I just like roguelikes because they're hard.
Excuse me if I rip into roguelikes for a second, but the problem I have with roguelikes here, right, is they take all the negative aspects I was listing about platformers before, and then they exemplify them tenfold. If you don't have time for a game, right, and then on top of that you're dying and you're restarting the whole dang game every time, you can imagine how for somebody who's just coming in to play a video game just to chill, not for the skill aspect of it. I like to play video games as downtime, right? I don't really want to set a world record speed run or anything. So when I come in to play a video game, the last thing I want to be doing is frustrating myself and slamming the keyboard every single time I die, and then I have to start all over and be I have to do that all over again. My progress is gone, and I understand what you're saying. It's a learning experience in a way, where okay, I've done this before, but for a game that I want to sit down with, I want to enjoy, whether that be with friends, whether that be just mindlessly shooting in COD, whether that just be flying a plane in War Thunder, right? Roguelikes, and even with other platforms, right? The thing I like about platforms especially is that sense of achievement. Once you hit that checkpoint, right? Okay, I'm halfway through this, time to go through the other half, sort of deal. I can't do that with a roguelike, and that just makes it, maybe this is definitely a personal thing with gaming for me. The fact that I like playing games as enjoyment and downtime, not so much for the sake of increasing my skill at games, right? But that's just frustrating to me when you spend time on a level or whatnot, you die, and boom, you have to do the whole thing over again, right? So your pros are literally my cons here, and I think that's just going to be a fundamental disagreement once again there. Yeah. It's just my take on video games is they should be relaxing, not I shouldn't have to be working to feel good about it, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So we'll leave off on that for roguelikes. Sports. And I know this is now going to be the opposite, and I expect a rant from you on sports games. So I'll start with why I like sports games. So I play a little bit of 2K. I played Madden with friends, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if you would count Rocket League, quote unquote, as a sports game, but
no.
Okay, we
No,
won't count Rocket League. But games like 2K and stuff. As somebody who likes to play those sports that he plays, video gaming, in real life as well, I'll take the example of 2K because I like to play a lot of basketball on the side. Just literally, I think learning from 2K and playing from 2K, just the perspective of, okay, if I could do XYZ in XYZ situation, right? And implementing that, it's the same reason why people will watch highlight reels if they like playing basketball, right? I'm not somebody, and this is a different debate, who likes to watch sports as much as he loves to play them. I love to play sports, right? But the reason I like to play like games like 2K, games like Madden, is because I can try out stuff that I otherwise might not be able to at the moment in real life in a like safe video game setting and see what works for me. And also just enjoy, I didn't really know much about the NBA until I started playing a little bit more 2K, right? And I just like that aspect of just, having control. Yeah, let's say a similar argument to what I was talking about with Adventure, maybe. We're having that control over the outcome of a game, whereas if I'm sitting on the TV watching the Pistons lose yet another game to God knows whoever, right? Having no control over it and just getting frustrated at the team and coach, right? I'd rather, be frustrated with myself and learn in a sports game than watch the sport, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's the same thing with, as you said, with adventures. You actually have agency as opposed to just being an observer.
But I do think I will move sports. Let me move it up here for a second. I'll just move this to number 5 because I think I could predict your argument here, and I probably could agree with it.
Actually, I don't know, because I'll be honest. The reason that I have sports games at number 10 is because I basically never played a sports game.
Well, that's also fair too,
I
right?
had FIFA, whichever one, for the Wii, and I played it like twice, and then I played Super Mario Galaxy instead.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're comparing like a diamond in the rough too, I don't know. That's not even a comparison.
Yeah,
a piece of tin. Yeah, there we go.
So that's like my main reason. I don't have any experience with sports games, but an actual argument in my limited experience of both sports games and sports, because I don't have that much experience with sports, definitely not as much as you. The one sport I've played somewhat is tennis, with my good friend Ammar here, and sports games and sports don't really, like, actual sports don't really have that much of a connection, like, in my mind. Like, they feel like completely different things to me. So, like, when I think of sports games, like, being good at a sports game, like, in my mind, really has nothing to do with being good at the sport itself. And so, considering it on that level, because I like, I'm not adverse to the idea of sports. I like tennis a lot because I other than sports, I just sit here on my couch. So I like moving every once in a while. But with sports games, just like, I don't know that much about it, but I think it's more based off like strategy and just like in-game mechanics that are just different from the real life thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I definitely play with guys who do nothing but to play 2K today, walk onto a court all cocky, and then just get stuffed every time they go up for a layup, right? And obviously, I don't think skills in video game sports are going to translate over that well into real life sports. What I do think they do is they do keep you a little bit familiar, as long as you're like playing your sport, right? If you're not assuming, okay, let me play 2K instead of going to practice today, right? Obviously, that's not going to work. If you
online school,
yeah, that's a debate for another time. But yeah, but if you substitute video games for actual sports, I think you're missing out on the point of actual sports at that point. Yeah. If you supplement video game sports with actual sports, and not obviously everything in moderation, right? If you supplement it, I think it's a great addition to your arsenal, honestly, because you have that like free, even like if something is not beyond, like I can't dunk, right? But if I had like the ability to see, okay, what patterns do people take when they're trying to approach the rim? Maybe I can't dunk, but maybe I can put in an easy layup because of XYZ, right? Just being able to put that in a situation where I don't have to risk myself getting hurt or something at like in that specific new maneuver. Let's say something I've never tried before, right? And I'm okay, if I hit a Euro step and then spin fade away, I don't want to twist my ankle if I haven't seen an NBA player do it before. You know what I mean? So I think that's a travel anyway. Regardless, that's not the point. But But I think that's just my take. It's a good supplement, and I think they're fun, relaxing. I think they're also pretty relaxing to play after you get to pass a certain level of skill. Even if you're not good, you could just turn on the difficulty on the AI, whatever the heck you want. They're just a little more chill, I think, and they're good to sit down and calm down with. All right, let's keep moving. Okay, let's talk. So, I mean, I put this pretty low on my list, and the reason I put it pretty low on my list is because I don't really play that many RPGs, but I'll give you the one I did like. For example, I play Fallout New Vegas. I did like it. It felt a little. It's that aspect again and again. I keep mentioning this, and it's really repetitive. And I'm really sorry about it, but video games shouldn't be work. Video games should be fun, right? Video games, RPGs, if you're just grinding experience, if you're just grinding, hunting an open world map for a new mod for your weapon, right? It's just defeating the point of the game, in a sense to me. And this is also the reason I think, and this is where we're going to have a fundamental clash again, because I liked adventure because, you know, everything you're doing is in direct correlation to what the point of the game is, right? RPGs, yeah, it might be cool if you can add a bump stock on your, God knows what, in Fallout New Vegas, right? But I mean, did I really just waste 2 hours across the Mojave Desert looking for a bump stock? Come on. I have better things to do with my time, right? And I guess it's just that aspect that it comes back to video games should be a little more relaxing. I shouldn't be like frustrated looking at every single abandoned shack to level up or just sitting in the desert grinding out experience points on death claws or whatnot, right? I mean, that's my take on RPGs. Just the fact I don't like grinding out for a game. I want to be able to come into a game, play it. I do think that it's fun to get better at a game. Obviously, I'm not saying games should be super easy and everything should be rainbows and, I don't know, rainbows and giggles, right? Obviously not. But I do think the main purpose of the game shouldn't be so much as, okay, I spent 3,000 hours on Fallout New Vegas. My guy is so modded that he's literally ascended to a god state, right? And but as much as it should be, okay, I grinded out a little bit. My player is better. I have more skills. So now I can tackle main purposes of whatever missions I'm going to play in the game. I don't know if you have anything to say to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Everything on my list below 4 is mostly here because I don't really have experience with them. And the bottom ones, okay, sports we've already gone over, but these two I just don't like. But these are here just out of apathy, basically. But I will actually disagree with, or say some stuff about the RPGs. I like the idea, like, I'm not necessarily against the idea of grinding, because I think, honestly, I would disagree with what you said. I think grinding can be relaxing in some circumstances. So we talked about War Thunder in The Sims, that has a free-to-play model, so unlocking the vehicles takes a lot of, like, time, and it's just grinding. But I think you could, like, sit down for, like, half an hour a day and, like, play a couple of matches, or, like, in an RPG, do a couple of quests, and you're like, well, I've made some progress towards my thing, and I haven't really, like, it hasn't really cost me that much effort. And so it could be, like, a kind of relaxing, like, rhythm sort of thing. Just something to do.
Yeah, no.
And I think the time that you put in, when you get your end goal, like, when you get the cool item or whatever, can, like, increase that could be pretty rewarding, I think. Which is, I think, why a lot of these RPG models work.
I guess. So, I mean, here's what I think. I think you have a point there, right? It can be pretty relaxing, especially if you're just falling into the rhythm state of whatever you're doing, especially if you're just playing match after match, right? You kind of go mindless after a while, and you're just chilling. But at the same time, I just don't like the idea of, like, spending that much time for something that might not have such a huge impact in your game. You know what I mean? Right? Like, if you're just grinding out, well, maybe that's not a great way to put it. Maybe it's just, like, the repetitiveness aspect of it. Or if you're doing the same thing over and over and over, I would get bored pretty easily. Maybe it's just because I'm impatient when I'm playing video games and I like to cut to the chase. I like to do that with a lot of things. I'm not very patient with, like, entertainment in general. I don't know why that is. But I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. If I wanted to do that, I would, I don't know, go lift more weights or something.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've had this argument with my brother. He used to play a game called Warframe, and he would play a lot of hours with that. And I would basically tell him what I told you. It's like, well, at some point, because what happens in Warframe is there's like story like stuff, and you do all of it, and then at the end you're just doing end game, which is just doing the same missions over and over again to get the very high level loot, right? And at that point you're just spending 100 hours doing the same mission over and over again. And I made that argument like against that for him. But what I think the thing to consider is, like, lots of the time, yeah, that can be boring. But if your game, if the gameplay loop is good, then there's not necessarily a problem with doing the same thing over and over again if what you're doing is fun.
I think you're gonna have to elaborate.
So I think that can be. So like, doing the same thing over and over again, I don't think is inherently bad if what you're doing is good. Like, if the gameplay is fun, if the missions you're doing are fun, if there's mechanics that, like, you actually have some agency to do, and especially if there's any sort of skill involved, then I think that you can spend a lot of time doing it without necessarily getting bored.
Okay. I mean, I could see that argument as well. At the same, I think I look at this too much from a time aspect. Time aspect maybe, where it just doesn't, like, I think I agree with what you're saying. Up to a certain point, grinding is fine. Once you're in that, like, end game state, then it's just like, why? Just define a new game, have some fun, do something new. Okay, yeah, so let's talk about puzzles now. And I think both of us, and I agree with you here, this little bit right here for me, starting from like 4 through 10, I don't have much experience with these games, except maybe, make that more like 5 through 10, I guess. I don't have much experience with these games, so I can't really give an accurate representation of it. They just never piqued my interest for the most part, except maybe 5. So 6, puzzle game. I'm trying to think of a, like, genuine puzzle game I've played recently. Okay, Portal. Let's talk about Portal. Portal itself, okay, Portal was a really good game, so it might be like I'm looking at a diamond and ignoring the tin, if we're doing that analogy again. Portal was really fun.
I don't know why Ted.
So Portal was really fun. Sometimes, though, you got the ability to... Everybody's got a walkthrough for every single game at this point. And I think part of the fun, when I was growing up playing Zelda, and played Portal 2 recently, right? Part of the fun was trying to figure it out on your own. But after you've been on the same level for like 45 minutes and you're getting nowhere, right? And you just have to look it up.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way you can move through, but it's just not... It's more frustrating at that point. And sometimes you just want to, like, throw the mouse across the room just because you're like, oh my god, I'm so sick of this. I just wanted to get through it. Like, it makes you feel dumb sometimes in a way if you can't figure out the puzzle, if that makes any sense. Maybe that's just me being egotistical, but it's just not something I would consider super relaxing. It's kind of fun. I think it depends on how much you enjoy puzzles in real life as well, right? I've never been one for, like, putting jigsaws together or doing riddles or that sort of thing, right? But I don't mind trying them at least. But if I don't get it, I don't want to, like, have to spend another 40 to 80 minutes on one bit of the puzzle, right?
Yeah. I would 100% agree with everything you said. My main problem with puzzle games is I'm not great at them, and they just, like, really frustrate me at a certain point. I would, however, also agree that Portal was really good. Portal 2 was really good, and I would chalk that up to, honestly, I would chalk that up to the aesthetic.
Yeah, I think
I really like
the storyline and aesthetic
and, like, everything else around it. Yeah, because at lots of points, well, not necessarily. Okay, sometimes in Portal 2, I played through, like, a good amount of Portal Stories Mel, which was like a mod for it. That's just basically like another Portal game. And lots of times in there, I'm just like, I have been looking at this level for the past 20 minutes and I'm not getting anywhere. Like, what am I going to do? And then I, like, just go do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't like how frustrating puzzle games can be.
Yeah, I don't want to be bored and frustrated while playing a video game. I've said this a million times. We'll move on. I think this is our last category now. This is going to be a bit of a controversial one, I think. Battle Royale. We both have it kind of low on the list. I'll let you start with it.
I honestly, Battle Royales are just worse. They're the worst FPS subgenre. I don't like how random Battle Royales end up being. Because so at first, like, lots of the Battle Royales, most of them have the, like, random spawns. Or not random spawns, but, like, there's, like, that whole thing at the beginning where, like, do you get a good spawn out of the ship or whatever. And then it's just who gets the best loot fastest. Because with FPS, when everyone has the same guns, it's all about who can aim the best, right? Or who has game sense, if your game is good. In Battle Royales, you're good at Battle Royales by finding the best loot fastest. And I just think that they're just rolling the die while playing an FPS. So I just don't... I'd rather just play COD than Warzone.
I think you made me just move Battle Royale up my list. I'll explain why in a second here. So I agree with what you're saying. Kinda. Not really. I think there's a... Oh, we don't want 2 Battle Royales. That'd be annoying. I think...
Oh, God. What, everyone making Battle Royales?
Gee, that
what?
sounds
That
familiar.
can't... Why would that ever happen?
Okay, yeah. Anyway, so I agree with what you're saying. Kind of. I think what killed Battle Royales was how many companies decided, oh, I found a cash cow. Let's beat the hell out of Battle Royales until everybody's playing them and everybody's basically, like, you know, buying all their skins, etc., right? I think you get...
I will say... Sorry, but I just had to say this. Before you continue, I think Fortnite is the, like, I would say my lowest ranked Battle Royale that has come out. I think all the other ones are better.
Yeah, okay. So here's what I'm going to talk about, right? So back to my childhood. Ooh, we're going to go back like 7 years or like maybe 2 years. I don't know. Anyway, Minecraft, when Minecraft was first coming out, right? And, you know, they had the multiplayer. One of my favorite things as a kid used to be playing that Minecraft Hunger Games. I don't know if you remember the Minecraft Hunger Games series.
I wasn't around for that, but I know of it. Yeah,
so, I mean, essentially the concept is still a battle royale. I would argue that's one of the first battle royales where other battle royales evolved from. In terms of modern battle royales, not like older battle royales. Anyhow.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah.
So once I'm going to talk about that point where you talk about the randomness. I think randomness, and I think this is where I guess the pro of like sort of being an FPS, just the sheer adrenaline of, okay, let's take the example of, I hate to say it, let's take the example of Fortnite, right? You drop out of the battle bus wherever you're going to land, and I think there's this sort of like own skill attributed to being able to work with nothing to something, in a sense, right? You drop in a building and all of a sudden you have like maybe a crappy pistol and maybe half a shield potion, and then the guy across from you has maybe, I don't know, a weak SMG and like no health kits, right? And just being able to duke it out right there, right then, like just being able to duke it out right there, I think is kind of an adrenaline rush. But
yeah, right there. Yeah, being able to, both of you have nothing, the same thing, i.e. every other normal FPS, and doing it. Yeah, that part's fun.
Well, I mean, here's the thing where it differs from FPS, in my opinion, from like that, right? In normal FPSs, you usually start around with a gun, right? Or COD stuff. Battle Royales, you usually, most of the time, start with nothing, and you have to earn your weapon some way, somehow. At least if you're talking about the classic Hunger Games style situation, right? So I do think there's an adrenaline part of that. The reason Battle Royales kind of rank low on my list is, A, they've been beaten the hell out of by companies, right? So, I mean, if everybody's doing it, it's not really something. And then especially... I'm tired of seeing everybody do a battle royale. The community is being flooded by 8-year-olds who love like battle royales, right? You ruin a lot of good games by just, oh hey, we want a battle royale mode, by now introducing a whole subgenre of a community that's only interested in the battle royale for some reason, right? The other thing that's a problem with battle royales is you get that sort of lull period where you're just like running around, like collecting items, and I think it might be almost like an RPG in that sense, where you're just running around, upgrading, like if you're taking the example of Fortnite, grabbing materials, grinding out trees, etc., so that you can use it in a final battle. I don't want to use the example of Fortnite. I'm going to keep it to Minecraft Hunger Games, because that one was okay, and I enjoyed it as a kid, right? But the problem... and I can also maintain my dignity while talking about battle royales. So I think that's what really got me down is A, you could either, or I talked about A was companies. B, just a lull in the middle where you're just grinding out. C, the fact that you could literally die at any moment from some BS and lose the entire game, even if you had a good, like, even if you were doing everything else right. You were grinding efficiently, you were setting up good hiding spots, right? Just some offhand shot that somebody that you didn't see from like 50 meters away behind a building gets you, and then boom, you're out of the game, right? The thing with FPS, at least you can respawn. You can't do that with Battle Royale. And I guess that's part of the thrill. The end game of Battle Royales, which obviously not many people go to because the whole point of an end game is that there's not many people left, I think is a sheer adrenaline rush. I love that rush, but you get the same rush constantly when you're playing FPS anyway. So FPS by far is just much better than Battle Royales without the lull, without the grinding. It's just chill, fun, more sociable. And I think Battle Royales were good for a time until they got beaten out of.
Yeah, honestly, I think you're giving Battle Royales too much credit there because I would agree. The beginning of rounds are always fun up until well, obviously, there's just a situation. You land, the other guy has a gun, and you don't.
Okay.
And you just
that's the other thing, right? That's what I'm talking about with random killing.
And then, if you get past there, and then, so I would agree with your point of just getting sniped and instantly losing for no reason. That is very infuriating. But lots of the time, you'll go around and you'll have some loot, and you'll just fight somebody who just had better loot. And if they have any sort of amount of skill, then they just win. And I think that's 99% of the Battle Royale experience is you either just win
that's valid.
or you
that's
just
why Battle Royales isn't very high on my list. I did move it above platformers because they're at least a little more relaxing than platformers, in my opinion, somewhat. That's very debatable. Very debatable. We already talked about platformers. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here because this episode is getting way too long. Thank you for listening.
We're gonna go play video. We're gonna go play video games.
Thank you guys for listening. We're gonna be uploading monthly, hopefully from now on. And leave us some comments below. We would love to talk to you. Goodbye.